First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David M. Hotep. His book is a fantastic book. And his first book is out of print. The second book came out in 2021, and that's available at Amazon. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David M. Hotep. Revised and expanded. Now, in 1311 AD, thousands of years after the Olmec arrived, the Mandinkan Muslim Abu Bakr II sailed 2,000 ships from Mali, West Africa, in the Atlantic, headed west. When they reached South America, they left signs on the rocks at the mouths of rivers, warning followers of dangerous or friendly natives. So Dr. David M. Hotep talks about this on page 88 of the First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. There's also a good article from face-to-faceafrica.com called Way Before Columbus, Ancient Malayans Sailed to the Americas in 1311 AD, Common Era, face-to-faceafrica.com from December 5th, 2018. In this article, it says, according to a number of sources, Abu Bakr II, Mansa, which means king, Mansa of the Mali Empire in the 14th century, led Malayan sailors to the Americas, specifically present-day Brazil, almost 200 years before Christopher Columbus arrived. Abu Bakr II ruled what was arguably the richest and largest empire on earth, covering nearly all of West Africa. The BBC reported in the article, Africa's Great Explorer, which came out December 13th, the year 2000, on the saga of Abu Bakr II. He left with 2,000 boats by Malayan scholar Gausu Diawara. Notes, Abu Bakr wanted to find out whether the Atlantic Ocean, like the great river Niger that swept through Mali, had another bank. He had traveled extensively throughout and outside of the African continent, already owning most of the continent. His predecessor and uncle, Sundiata Keita, had already founded the Mali Empire and conquered a good stretch of the Sahara Desert and the great forests along the West African coast. Okay, so we look at West Africa and Ghana, Songhai, and Mali, but also Mansa Musa is also related. There's a relation between Mansa Musa and the fictitious character of T'Challa in Black Panther in Wakanda. Now, there's a good article from History.com, the official website of the History Channel, that talks about this, okay? Because we deal with the film Black Panther in the course, because Black Panther relates to African history, African culture, African language, African spiritual systems. There are 11 different African cultures that are infused into the film Black Panther. Ruth Carter, who was the costume designer, she studied African cultures for 6 months. Okay, Ruth Carter, who won an Oscar for her costume designing for the film Black Panther. And she incorporated 11 different African cultures into the movie. Okay, so this article here talks about from the history.com. It says, in the vast fictional universe of Marvel Comics, T'Challa, better known as Black Panther, is not only king of Wakanda, he's also the richest superhero of them all. And although the title of wealthiest person alive involves a tug of war between billionaire CEOs, the wealthiest person in history, Mansa Musa, has more in common with Marvel's first black superhero. Mansa Musa became ruler of the Mali Empire in 1312 Common Era, or AD, taking the throne after his predecessor, Abu Bakr II, for whom he'd serve as deputy, went missing on a voyage he took by sea to find the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. Mansa Musa's rule came at a time. Now, this is extremely important right here. Mansa Musa's rule came at a time when European nations were struggling due to raging civil wars and a lack of resources. Okay, so Europe was dealing with poverty, famine, disease, civil wars, things like this, while West Africa is thriving, while the Mali Empire is thriving. During this period, the Mali Empire flourished thanks to ample natural resources like gold and salt. So this article is entitled This 14th Century African Emperor Remains the Richest Person in History. This is from History.com, the official website of the History Channel, March 19, 2018. So we know the character of Black Panther T'Challa was introduced in Fantastic Four issue 52, July of 1966. And it was a two-part series. And in this comic book, in the first part of the story, T'Challa defeats the Fantastic Four in their own comic book, okay? And this was the first time we saw like an African superhero like this, or a black superhero like this. And he talks about at the end of issue 52, as you see, Harry Chieftain of the Wakandans, of the Wakandas, and perhaps the richest man in all the world. And perhaps the richest man in all the world. Okay, now, the panther deity of Bast that we see in the movie, the panther deity that watches over Wakanda, that comes from Bastet, which was a nectar or deity in ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, that was in the form of a lioness, okay, and then later a cat. Ancient Egyptian goddess worshipped in the form of a lioness and later a cat, goddess of warfare in Lower Egypt, worshipped as early as Second Dynasty, around 2890 BCE, before the Common Era. Okay, so the film is so deep because it helps reconnect us to African history, African culture, African language, etc. The language spoken in the film Black Panther is isiXhosa, which is a real African language spoken in Southern Africa. And isiXhosa has the click sounds in it also. And we know the click language was the original language. We know that with the Wakandan salute comes straight out of ancient Kemet. That's as always, right over left. And that is the symbol, that's the pose of the Nasubitis, or the pharaohs in the sarcophagi, the painted coffins, the sarcophagi is right over left. It's a symbol of power, symbol of royalty. And we see that, go all around the world as well. Now, Wakanda is a real word. Wakanda basically means possesses secret powers, and we see the word Wakanda in the Omaha, Ponca, and Sioux Indian languages also. Wakanda is not something just made up. It's a real word. Ruth Carter did a hell of a job on the costume design for the film Black Panther. She was also the costume designer on the film Malcolm X as well. But one of the African influences we see in the film Black Panther, and we go through and study the film Black Panther in the class because there's so much there. And I've done lectures. Well, first of all, I did 3 months of research on the first Black Panther movie to be able to do my lectures on the film Black Panther. And I incorporate a lot of that into this class. Okay. So how do you all like this type of information so far? Post your comments here. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a heart. Give us a like on this broadcast. The Basotho, who are from Lesotho, which is an enclave inside of South Africa. It's a country within a country. They have these blankets that we saw incorporated into Black Panther. These are cultural blankets, the Basotho heritage blankets. These blankets have a deep cultural significance and history. The world-renowned Basotho tribal blankets distinguish this nation from others by the way in which the blankets are worn as part of their everyday life. The designs have been developed over many years with the blessing of the Lesotho royal family. We also see the Ndebele of South Africa represented also with the gold rings worn around the necks of the Dora Milaje, okay? And then we see the Ovahimba of Namibia represented in the hairstyle of one of the elders when they are on the side of the mountain and they're watching the ritual combat that was taking place. It showed the beginning of the movie, the ritual combat between T'Challa and M'Baku. Okay, that ritual combat comes straight from the comic book, and it takes place at what's called Warrior Falls. That's the name of that waterfalls. It's called Warrior Falls. That's straight out of the Black Panther comic book and Jungle Action comic book. And this is where the ritual combat takes place to determine who's going to sit on the throne of Wakanda. So we go through, and these are all different aspects of the course that I put together that we deal with.
No,
okay?
Mystic, as he was speaking about the goddess Bastet, or Bass as it's called. Remember, even in the Black Panther, the sister that plays Bass is Angela Bass, or Angela Bastet. That's quite interesting, don't you think? Yeah. We did a whole program on the Black Panther and the mystic of, the vibration. But if thanks to Brother Michael Imhotep, you could check out his channel. The brother goes into some heavy history, definitely gives you all his source, directly connected to the elders in his research, and that is always very good. Now, family, as I said this evening, remember that we are going to have Brother Ras Isern with us. We're going to have Brother Anko Madrid with us, and we're going to have Ras Kwame with us, and hopefully Ras Laza will be with us. It's going to be a packed evening on Rasta Roundtable. As soon as this program is done, you make your way for Rasta Roundtable. And actually this evening, give thanks. As I said, we will be continuing the reasoning from previous Wednesday, Thursday, pardon me, and we were speaking about some historical facts as it relates to Ethiopia. Well, we will continue along that line, but more so as it relates to the biblical aspect and the traditional, Christian traditional aspect of the Ethiopian situation. So I'm looking forward to that. Get down. I'm looking forward to that encounter this evening after we seal up this discussion here about the 420. 421. Hey, family, you already know that it is a celebration moment. I must admit, for the last strong and a half, we would have been doing a few programs, some on the Tiger's Nest, some on the YouTube, as it relates to the 21st day of April. Myself and Kes Westmore, evening welcome to the House of Priests, we would have sat down and we would have spoken about the importance of the visitation of Haile Selassie I as it relates to Jamaica, and of course the importance of King Emmanuel Charles Edwards and that visitation, and how not only the visitation applied to him, but just his status as a general and a representative of his people, crown champion of human rights. That is very key and very important. Now you see, before we even get to that, 420 again. Because remember that 420 is the 20th day of April. So what's wrong with celebrating 420? What are we talking about? Marijuana? Yeah, man, we could celebrate 420, 490, 480, 317, 512, 715, 822. Any day you choose. We celebrate the marijuana. But you see, again, I like to take a look at things critically sometimes. Let me show you an example. Now, what do you notice about Good Friday? Especially those of you who are Bobo Shanti. What do you recognize about Good Friday? Well, Good Friday, of course, out in the world, we all know Good Friday is seen as the day when Christ was crucified. And the thing is so light, and the thing is so heavy, and the thing is so don't have nothing to do with I and I, that when we as Bobo Shanti say, hey, get ready for resurrection, Good Friday, black over white or all white, or some people say, what? What them Rasta here talk about? Good Friday. Man, them Rasta just keep Lent too now. Yeah, boy, them man, don't follow them Roman Catholic thing, yeah. That is what our ones may, quickly say. But what is happening here is that the Roman Catholic thing is following us. I'm sure you would have heard the story. Truth and lie went for a swim one day. So as most people do, they derobed themselves, I'd assume up to their bathing trunks, and they went and they had a bath. It is saying while truth was having a swim, Mr. Lie came out of the water and was putting on truth's clothes. And when Truth saw Mr. Lie putting on his clothes, Truth said, hey, how are you do? And Mr. Lie took off in one speed, and Mr. Truth swam out the water and then started to run him down. And somebody said, hey, look, you see the naked Truth running down a well-dressed lie. You see, the resurrection that we keep on the day they call Good Friday, that's the naked truth. Those who perpetrate nature and take advantage of it at the same time, mock it and pretend as if they're creating their own stuff, that's the well-dressed lie. If you notice, most of these quote-unquote pagan holidays that people speak about, when you look into their origin, they usually come from the worship of nature. Those who would have dealt with it, again, they were called pagans. To call somebody a pagan is not an insult. Maybe to call you a pagan is an insult, but there are those who are proud pagans. They don't see it as nothing devilish. It is those who are, it is the Roman Catholic, the Roman Church, who when they decided to hijack another culture, which they call Christendom, said that, hey, you, my white brothers and sisters who refuse to join this new cult that we have formed, we're going to defame you. So from you are a pagan, you are seen as this outcast because you're not following Christendom. So we now come and utilize the term pagan. When a pagan is really, and a heathen too, anybody that's not dealing with the Pope or Rome. But those who are genuine pagans, as a tradition from Rome, from Europe, they were the followers of nature. So they watched the sun, they watched the trees, and all of that. They rocks, and they used to sun worship, and they used to pray to the rocks and all of that stuff. Yeah. So if you notice now, you speak about Christmas. What is it all about? The winter solstice. Nothing wrong about the winter solstice, of course. And then the evergreen spruce tree and these kind of things. Nature, something natural, is being expressed in a real quote-unquote paganistic way. Halloween. Halloween is designed around the day when portals are open. All Saints Day. Portals are open. The emperor got coronated during that same time when them portals are open. We've done programs on that. But the well-dressed lie knows how to get away with the distraction and pretending to be the naked truth. So this is what is taking place, family, in many different aspects. 420. What is 420 really all about? Marijuana. Okay. Now, you may argue that the visitation of Haile Selassie I on the 21st of April was not really about marijuana. So to think that 420 would have hijacked maybe the marijuana energy from 421 is not, no, priest, that's not good at all. Now, we all know that marijuana, cannabis sativa, is directly linked and related to Rastafari. I don't think there's anyone that denies this. Now, of course, they would have wrestled it out of our hands, not totally, but that's what they're trying to do. They used to beat it out of our hands. They used to lock us up with it. Well, not with it. They would lock us up and lock it up, but they took it away. And now all of a sudden, well, they come to realize that it's good now. And let's give some of the Rasses a chance to have a little smoke for themselves. So now we're hearing about this 420 and everyone is celebrating. But interestingly, this 420 day, goes mystically into, again, 421. Now, when Haile Selassie I visited Jamaica, 421, the 21st day of April, I'm sure we could all recall when the plane landed. Remember that barricades and everything, all that were put up to hold the people at bay was removed. And we went over the railings and we kicked down the gates and we did all that we felt that we had to do to get close to Emperor Haile Selassie I. Can you remember what we did next? While the plane was moving, we were lighting up our chalices, countless of chalices, Father. You could smell marijuana for miles. You could see the smoke arising around the Ethiopian airways, on the tarmac, on the runway, at the airport. I'm talking about an airplane, jet fuel, not regular gas, jet fuel, pardon me. I've worked around jet fuel. I know how fast it is. Jet fuel. That's why when you go into the gas station, they tell you to turn your car off and out that cigarette and all of that stuff. But here we are, burning, woof, woof. And when the herb kind of dry and crispy and you're lighting sparks flying all out of the country, flying everywhere, I could imagine. And nobody could stop us. Sensimania. What 420 you talking about? When on earth have you seen such a, not just coming together and smoking a herb, but in serious defiance of authority? Not no gathering together illegally and burning and say, hey, they're coming, let's run. No. We came and met them there. They were aligned in the thousands with bayonet and guns and shields and helmet. They had all of that waiting for the King of Kings. But the King of Kings didn't come to see them. The King of Kings came to see us. And when the plane landed after the mighty shower of rain, and then the sun came out and dried us all up. And the rainbow and the seven doves, I think, came from the east and went to the west, or whichever direction, and the plane then came from the opposite direction and landed. We decided that we are going to meet the king. And we removed all obstacles out of our way, and we went to meet the emperor of Ethiopia. Remember again, ganja, cannabis, marijuana is Rastafari. I know some of you guys say, no, brother, marijuana is for everybody. I know. Locks is for everybody too, of course. Turban is for everybody. Nobody, if it's one thing with Rasta, we not acting like if we own nothing, and we come to, you see, the fight we fight is for everybody. Yeah, but let's just be clear. Locks is Rasta. Yeah, I know it's a little different now, but remember, I am coming from a time that once you have locks, you don't start to feel the persecution as a Rastafari. It may be different now, but been there, done that, much less those who would have been beaten just for having the locks. When they used to beat Ras for locks, they didn't stop you and say, excuse, come here, sir. Before I hit you, are you a Ras or not? Or you can go, he's not a Ras. He said he's not a Ras. You sure? No, you got to trust him. No, for me have locks, they're better, you know. Because we dead or alive, Rasta. So when a Rasta now, who would have gone through that stand up and say, hey, we defend the locks. We are the custodians of the locks. Let's put it that way. Rasta, locks belong to Rasta. But because we're so loving, we fight for the locks so everybody can wear it. That's my point. Ganja belong to I and I too. You can't tell me no. We were the ones that stood on the front line. Everybody know we burning herb and we get the blows for that. Everybody else hiding. What Scooby doing, Shaggy in the mystery machine behind there, puffing away, hiding. You never know that. Come on. You don't know Shaggy, them people is hippie, they're hippies. All of them, Velma and Fred and Daphne, hippies. That's why Scooby and Shaggy always ready for a Scooby snack. Them fellas can eat. You know? It's the strain that they're burning behind there in the bus. Hippies, look at the bus with the flowers. Them is the flowers hippies used to put in their head. Hippies, 420. So I'm saying 421 was the day when Rasta, unlike any other day ever, gathered together and light up the chalices, the ganja, under the plane of the God Almighty. Now you see, this is the key point. It wasn't just Rastas coming together. Rastas always gather. Rastas always gather. And maybe, you know, you could argue that Rastas would have gathered in a bigger session than that before, or not before, but after, and maybe even before. So let me be careful how I speak. So, I mean, it's arguable that Rastas would have gathered like that. I understand, maybe bigger, maybe more smoking. Okay, fair enough, but that's not the point. That's not the point. Because you see, when Christ suffered for the world, it is not that nobody ever suffered that much. You know, I'm sure the suffering that our Messiah would have felt. Many people say, wait, preaching now, yeah. I'm sure someone may have felt worse pain. Right, but it's not just the pain, but it's the value of him that bore the pain. So even if somebody else would have get a harder lick from the whip than the Messiah The point is that they were not the Messiah. So I'm saying all that to say, although there may have been a greater gathering of Rasta that you can find somewhere on record. There's this video on YouTube, 1994, a Bingy video. Wow, that is a big gathering. It looks like it rivals the gathering there in 1966, but you got to keep in mind the gathering in 1966 wasn't just races as such, it was people. And a lot of the people were not even smoking. But the races, them, coming together on the tarmac, were lighting up their chalices, mostly chalices. Them time is chalice man burning, just smoking under the plane. So it is the value of the moment. Not just the gathering and the smoking, but for who? The King of Kings. Them other bigger gatherings, if they ever existed, didn't have the King of Kings flying in. No. Because remember, the King of Kings never land nowhere in the world and receive anything like that. Never. Remember, this is the King of Kings, the returned Messiah, the seed of Solomon that history and prophecy speak of. And you can highlight in all of his visitation, all of his trips, you can highlight a specific visit that you can't compare to no other visit he ever have anywhere. And that's when he went to Jamaica, 1966. Yes, so it is a beautiful thing to even reminisce on. And again, it brings into, again, the whole importance of the connection with the cannabis and us. Because, it is directly related, and I would say again, we can hold firm and defend it as far as with our rights, our cannabis rights and such. So even on this day, this celebration is highly. And as I said, no matter what day it is, we still celebrating the cannabis sativa. And even at this moment, I'm just going to somewhat recall the program that we did with Kes Westmore, Priest Richie. And this was on Sunday evening. The program is entitled Welcome to the House of Priests. And again, interestingly, we're going to be having a similar program this evening. Well, not a similar program. These are different programs, to be honest. Remember, I sit in the midst of them all, so take it from me. These are different types of programs. But we are going to be having a gathering again this evening. And that will be at the hour of 8 myself. Remember, Ras Isern, Enko Madrid, and Ras Kwame should be joining us again this evening. And I'm hoping also Ras Laza. So we're going to have a packed house this evening. We're going to be continuing the reasoning as it relates to the truth behind the Ethiopian history. What an interesting reasoning we had that previous night there. I know some of you are still scratching your head over that one. But this evening, I think we're going to somewhat narrow down. And I do say, I think, because especially on this subject area on the program, the brothers are more, to be honest, leading that discussion off. And I'm somewhat just listening and somewhat basking in the information. I like to do that, especially when so much ones are in the house. So yes, so we will be continuing that reasoning as it relates to the truth, basically, behind the Ethiopian history as it relates to religion and even the scriptures and the Bible and these different things. So this should be interesting. In a sense, this is like the third strong way of keeping up this sort of level of reasoning. So it is very good, and I'm encouraging ones to stay tuned for that this evening. All right, now, so again, when we were with the Honorable Kes Westmore, what we were speaking of is the diplomatic history as it relates to the visitation of 1966. And again, you know, it's nice that we've been doing several programs on this 1966, 21st of April, leading up to now. And of course, remember, there's a strong astronomical link here. The eclipse that's happening now, basically, the meteor shower that's happening now, basically, wherever you are, you can see it. The alignments that have been happening for some time now. Of course, the moon would have just kissed Jupiter. Now it's a new moon. So many different things happening even at this moment of celebration. So it is a joy. And of course, remember, the meteor shower is taking place over the serpent holder's head. And we don't know what that represents. So the good brother was highlighting, remember, we were speaking about the research that he would have done. And as I said then, and I would say now, it is a brother that would have done his due diligent research as it relates to our Congress and understanding the geopolitics that King Emmanuel was engulfed in. As Priest Richie I talking, and I know that as a fact. And so we were speaking about the connection with the Honorable King Emmanuel and the United Nations, etc. And I always like to bring this to the forefront. This is not religion. You don't have to even mention no Bible or anything, no church, no the Lord says, no hallowed be thy name, nothing, no glory be. You don't have to say none of these things. Prince Emmanuel is a human being. Prince Emmanuel is a human being. Don't worry about the wings on his back. A man he is. He's one of the people that took up the tradition of Rastafari. It just so happens that he happens to be the first Rastaman to get diplomatic with pen and paper. The first Rastaman to address the monarch or the Queen of England on pen and paper. That's just the truth. It's not no lie. See, that's the problem, you know. We could get religious now and then we miss the essence of what happened in here. You know, all the elders will tell you this. So this is why, you know, as a man that would have wrote letters to heads of states, this is why it's not no mistake that when Ghana got their independence in 1957, I talk about this all the time, they rose the flag that King Emmanuel Charles Edwards rise. Remember King Emmanuel, I mean, the Rasta man, you know. Okay, we all know Rasta carry the banner of the red, gold, and green. And yes, red, gold, and green is Ethiopian color. But from the 1930s, Rasta was flying the red, gold, and green with the red up. Is not Ghana come and do that first? It's I and I doing that so long. But what's interesting here, the Honorable King Emmanuel now is not just Rasta flying a flag, you know. As you could see, King Emmanuel is a diplomat. Look at our black supremacy book. Look at any one of our diplomatic letters. At the head, what do you see? You see our banners. You see the red, black, and green. You see the red, gold, and green. Obviously, you know, even our banners have modified over the time. We added banners, the Nigerian banner. I think that was added in the 80s or late 80s. You know, the red, gold, and green, black over white, 7-colored banner, the black United Nations flag. The black United Nations flag banner. Even that we haven't officially. I think we had a ceremony to raise that. I have to ask Kes Westmore about that. But officially, that is not a part of the 7 banners. So I'm just trying to show you how things would have evolved. But just to think that at the time when Ghana ain't no just old Ghana, you know, this is the first black independent country in Africa getting its independence now, and it rising a banner. It rising a banner that look like the Rastaman banner in Jamaica. What kind of thing is that? But Kwame Nkrumah, what going on? Why you choose that banner? Well, the King of Ethiopia gave me. But the king of Bakawal was not just using that banner, you know, but in a diplomatic way. Family, this is no joke. So when you see diplomats from the United Nations, according to the documents I would have read from Robert Crooks, interesting name, yes. Bhagwa Singh, what's the other one? I have several key people, quotes, key people in the United Nations. Of course, the Secretary General, Utan too, but there's some key people that would have corresponded with the Honorable King Emmanuel Charles Edwards. We have them by name, several people. When the father write a letter and someone write him back from the UN, he tell you who write him back. And it's always high diplomat in the United Nations. They would have even come right to Bobo Hill to visit King Emmanuel to see the work that he was doing. There are those amongst I that can testify of these things. When the UN diplomat representative clearly says that King Emmanuel is the champion of human rights. These are not things that Bobo just taught. This is reality. It takes some realize to realize, Rasta. This is reality. This is not religion. So the point I'm making then is that when Haile Selassie came to Jamaica in 1966, yeah, I know we can say, boy, Abraham meet Melchizedek. And the Lamb came and took the book out of him that sat upon the throne. And the Ancient of Days did sit, and the Son of Man came, and yeah, all of that is true. But you see, sometimes that does kind of distract people, and you know, then the whole story get placed amongst the religions. But if you just look at it for what it really is, you see the diplomatic power here. So in other words, when Haile Selassie met King Emmanuel, why you think he could have tell the Rasses them next time in 1961, 21st of April, next time, tell Jamaica to send the right people? How is it you think Abuna Basilis would have given the brothers them robes and turbans? And to be fair, right? To be very fair, family. I don't want to, I know I said that several times, I don't want to lose your understanding of what happened. It's not as if Abuna Basilis, who is the Archbishop of the Ethiopian Church at the time, it's not as if he gave them Bobo robe and Bobo turban, right? They were given authentic Ethiopian garments. What really struck me is that from my understanding that they were given literal priestly garments, not just Ethiopian clothes, you know, the clothes of the priests. And you know, Ethiopian priest is a robe and a turban. It might be a bit different than I. So I'm not going to try to make, you know, bore them and give them a regalia and a robe just like Emmanuel. No, I don't think it was that. But just the fact that they give you a robe and a turban, and to me, to certify that you are already a priest, just to be saying Rastafari. And 5 years after, which is the celebration now, 57th anniversary, when the king came, remember gold medals were given out to all 31. And the man with the robe and turban came forward first. But what I'm saying, when the king met King Emmanuel, remember King Emmanuel would have already written to the king. I already show you, this is 1966, you know. The emperor already addressed the UN since 1963, man. And then give Utan the obelisk and King Emmanuel corresponding all before them different times. And of course, the emperor in his brilliance understood what's going on. You think the emperor don't know about the Coral Gardens massacre? So in reality, meeting King Emmanuel is like meeting a fellow diplomat. Yeah, even if you want to say, boy, You can't compare the king with none of them people here. Now, let me put it this way. Everyone the king meet, I wouldn't compare none of them with him. Whichever president you call, none of the popes, nobody, I wouldn't compare them with the king. But it is diplomat to diplomat. Don't you agree? Even when the king come and meet a regular prime minister, Bustamante and them, it's diplomat to diplomat. Right. So however you want to rank King Emmanuel, you must admit, when the emperor met King Emmanuel, it was diplomat to diplomat. That's what it was. That's why the black glove now became so important. That's what it was. So the Honorable King Emmanuel Charles Edwards, whether you like it or not, would have already placed himself on stage in the diplomatic world, speaking of the plight of Rastafari and his people in general, and speaking of reparation long before it was even a word. Well, it was a word long time, but before it was a catchphrase. Yeah. Freedom, redemption, international reparation. No, international repatriation is what he spoke of. So I'm just bringing some reality to this day. And when you hear the Bobo Shanti speak and say, yeah, man, the father come down here to check her, and no, you may say, oh, come on, he didn't come to check you alone. I agree, he didn't come to check her and everyone. But don't sweep under the rug the fact that he did come to see I and I, his children, and specifically his ambassador. His ambassador. Who is Haile Selassie's ambassador? King Emmanuel VII. Adonai God, Jah, Rastafari. So 420, again, you know, again, nothing is wrong with 420. There's nothing wrong with any day. Give thanks for 420. Burn more herb, 419 and 418 too. But as I said, like many holidays and folly days that tend to be these well-dressed lies being chased down by the naked truth. It's the same thing, see, the naked truth come right after the well-dressed lie, 420 then 421. Because if there is a day that should be commended or remembered or commemorated or whatever word you want to find because of ganja smoking, especially ganja smoking at the time of gathering, it shouldn't be 420. It should be 421. But there was nothing like that ever happened before. 21st of April, underneath the plane, when God Almighty, the King of Kings, came. But again, it's so interesting that they look over 421 and God straight to 420. They make them fool them. Hey, family, give thanks for your presence. This is one of these tigers that I gotta say, hey, gotta go, we gotta go now, as we say. But for sure, what is taking place now, I'm going, but I'm not going nowhere. I'm right here. I'm going to get up from the seat, but I'm coming right in the seat again. Just going to somewhat refresh and, get a new chalice packed and, and maybe just snap something quicker while you listen to some Nabingi, what you're talking about. Because coming up next is Rasta Roundtable. So you yourself, you don't have to go nowhere unless you're going to get some juice, some water, going to repack your chalice because it's going to be a blazing discussion this evening. Yeah, we have about an hour and a half to do this, so I'm not even wasting any time. Just make sure you are set and ready. Of course, Rasta Roundtable coming up next. Myself, Rasta Isern, and Brother Enko Madrid, and we will have with us our special guest, Ras Kwamai should be in the house, and Ras Laza. Hey, family, if you know your Bible and you do not know your history, the knowledge of your Bible will become a mystery, and remember, it takes some realize to realize other real lives that are amongst us. Hey, Rasta Roundtable next coming up. Remember, family, you know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. Did you receive your Zoom link yet? You haven't received your Zoom link yet? for Sunday, the 30th day of April. Make sure you get your Zoom link. Remember, it's free. I'm going to be giving a beautiful lecture. I'm talking about the heavens declare. Family, this is going to be the day when we will be officially launching the Ancient Astronomy course, certified course. We will be relaunching the homeschool program. And listen to this, we will have a brand new documentary short film, Anu, the Ancient City. No one will want to miss that. In fact, make sure you're early because that's the first thing we're presenting to you. That's the 30th of April. So make sure you get your Zoom link, family. Make sure you get your Zoom link. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. Hey, Rasta Roundtable, don't go anywhere. Holy Manuel Eyes. Lassie, Ja, Ras, Atafari. You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spy.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke. When I'm gone, no one gets on, cause I won't let nobody press up and mess up the scene I set. I like to stand in the crowd and watch the people wonder, damn.
This is uniparentally inherited. This is a Y chromosome passed from father to son to son to son. This particular DNA marker here, PN2, is sort of the background, and that's what this means. It's the background of 73% of all of the peoples in Africa today. 73%. The PN2 is found in West Africa and sub-equatorial Africa. The P2 or M2 as it's called. This M35, 215 M35, is what you find in the Horn of Africa up to Egypt and over to Morocco. It corresponds to the 5 and the 11 in the previous slide. This is the father of both groups of Africans. This binds the continent together, okay? So although you have Berbers with blue eyes and blonde hair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they share, for the most part, this PN2 ancestry with people in West and tropical Africa. This is the modern population. And they share much less of the M89, which comes off the tree, in another way. I'm going to finish here. This is an old slide. I'll just stop here. Okay, well, that's where it stopped anyway, doesn't it? Okay, all right.
Any questions about Shamaka's presentation? Okay.
You mentioned about there being no Europeans 60,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me when they first went into Egypt? When the Mediterranean people first went into Egypt?
When I talk about 60,000 years ago, there being no modern people in Europe, what I'm saying is the best evidence that we have for modern people being anatomically, what we call anatomically modern people in any part of Europe is at the outside 40,000 years, okay? And when you talk about Mediterranean people, we need to talk about that later on because, as I have said and tried to say, Africans don't all look alike. So some of what you're calling Mediterranean people are just some more Africans, okay? Now, you have to get your arms around that. And that's what that last slide was about with the PN2 transition. Because most of the people there who have that PN2 transition, that particular gene, that genealogy, in its derived form is M35. For example, Berbers are M35, M81. Those people don't look like Congolese. But I'm trying to have you understand that they are carrying genealogically, in terms of their male ancestry at least, they're carrying something that ties them to the rest of the continent and does not tie them to Europe, even though physically, externally, you may say, well, gee, they look like Europeans. You understand what I'm saying? So when you ask me, when did X, we don't use those concepts of Mediterranean race, Alpine race, Nordic race, all that's from another era. You know, it's descriptive, and in actual fact, you will find, you can find individuals all over the world who might conform to one of those sort of categories. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So then,
that's the same thing they say about being Arab. Arab is a culture, not a race. It means traveling person.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand. What are you asking me? Here.
Well-
You asked me, very specifically, you asked me, when did Mediterranean people get to Egypt? I don't know what you mean by Mediterranean, but let me
People
repeat
that
myself.
don't look African.
No, well, there's more than one way to be African. There's more than one way to look African. There's more than one way to look Asian. There's more than one way to be Asian. That is what you have to, from my perspective as an evolutionary biologist, that's what you have to get your arms around. The people in southern India are just as Asian as the people in northern China, who are just as Asian as the people from the Eurasian steppes. You know, they don't look alike. And you measure them, they don't look alike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me put it another way. For example, you have Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, what do you mean? What are you
Well,
talking about?
when did that sort of look into Egypt?
The thing is that, number one, who was Cleopatra?
I'm asking you.
Well, what I'm saying, Cleopatra was probably a Macedonian. Well, she was a Macedonian.
From near Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
mean. When did people that look like that go into Egypt?
Well, I don't know about Elizabeth Taylor specifically, and you know, very specifically, but I would dare to say that within the Nile Valley, within the Nile Quarter, within super-Saharan Africa, there have always been people who were lighter skinned and straighter haired from 60,000 years ago. Always. They're not new. That's my whole point. In fact, I could make the argument that those kinds of characteristics actually originated in Africa.
Yeah.
That they didn't come from someplace else.
Yeah.
They're part of modern humanity, or they're part of humanity. And there's no reason to believe that they could not have originated in Africa. Incidentally, skin color can flip back and forth from an evolutionary point of view. We now know every 15,000 or so years. It's not the sort of thing that, you know, it takes 100,000 years, million years to live in one place. And skin color itself is not always an accurate index, even in current situations like in Brazil and Venezuela. It doesn't necessarily give you a proportionate amount of ancestry. You can have people with very fair skin, but actually have more, quote-unquote, black ancestors than some people who are actually darker. So you have to be very careful about what you think you can quantify from that, again, based on science evidence. Now, the issue of having narrow features, a narrow face, and what have you, we have remains, and normally I would show you this slide, but we're not going to get to that today, of people from Gambel's Cave in East Africa down in Kenya that are probably about 10 to 12,000 years old. If you measure them up and submit them to a forensic type analysis, they'll cluster with Europeans. They're not Europeans. Their limb ratios are as tropical as you can be. They come from right there. That's what you have to get on.
Charlie, you could ask more questions later. I'd like to give somebody else a chance, and you can carry on later, yeah? Anybody else? Okay, we need to stop. Oh, okay, sorry, yep.
I mean, you place stock in Darwin's the theory of evolution, and I'm just trying to get an idea from what the questions I'm hearing is. I mean, what would you define then as an African?
I don't define an African or the African. There is a matrix of variability that constitutes a description of an African reality. Very different notion. The moment you start defining things with narrow terms and in particular ways, and a non-scientific, for something that's as fluid as this, is the moment that you will get into trouble, because then you're going to be forced to explain things, like I said, with typological methods or deductive methods when they don't fit. Okay?
It's a shame we ran out of time for this section, because that would have been really fascinating. It's just that you said there's and I do hear your point, there's a diversity within the African identity or spectrum. It just feels that if there is no, I mean, we don't just need to talk about the African identity. I mean, I don't subscribe to the notion of race either, but I think if we're using terms like African or Egyptian, which is probably more geopolitical in that context, but if we're using terms like that to define a reality, surely there must be a boundary, or so it isn't diversity we're talking about. We're talking about an entirety of the human race, which is one, and then we start to lose.
No, you don't lose
Where's
it
the
because you
barriers
have
for the diversity?
No, you don't lose anything, because you have your model-based approach. You have a real history of a species that emerged in Africa. You have some real fossils. You have some real people that you can look at. You have some real DNA evidence that ties together. Frankly, I was quite astounded when I found that when the Y chromosome data got produced, they didn't have that 25 years ago when I first started on this adventure. But I am pleased to say that I wrote, and you can get my master's thesis. I said, there's no theoretical reason why these Berbers from Algeria couldn't share common ancestors in the late Pleistocene. And sure enough, 20 years later, when the DNA came out, because what most people would say is they look at these Berbers, and I have pictures of them, they say, oh, these are descendants of the Vandals, because they look like Europeans. Well, I'm trying to have you understand that God or evolution, whichever one you want to choose to work with, works in mysterious ways. And I'm trying to have you understand that from a scientific point of view, that PN2 marker, that PN2 gene, ties 70% of the continent together. And there's some other things that are basically only restricted to Africa, except for the odd one you find outside, groups A and B. This belongs to the E group. We can talk about that later. But no, what you're saying is that if you don't have some hard and fast boundaries, then it's hard for you to work with certain things. And I'm saying that would be like saying that if your son, if you had 6 sons and one of them moved to China and his descendants were only Chinese, and one moved to Greenland and his descendants were only Inuit, and another son moved to, I don't know, the Amazon and his descendants were only, folks from the Amazon, that they wouldn't be your relatives. That would not patently be not true. Genealogically, they would all be connected to you because you're the grandpa. They're still connected. The idea that physical similarity will always track with relationship is what we're trying to get. I'm trying to dispel you of that notion because it's not always true. And so there's sometimes people who may look very similar, or when you measure certain things, they may appear to be similar based on the math, but in actual fact, using other measures and other kinds of information, you know that can't possibly be true. So when I go down to, when I go up to, when I go to some village in the Sudan and I say, that guy looks just like guy at the conference in London, I mean, they must be, oh, no, it's not your twin brother. It's an accident. It's an accident. There is something in physical anthropology and evolutionary biology called polytopicity. And polytopicity was a problem for early evolutionary biologists who were interested in taxonomy and classification. Why? Because polytopicity refers to the fact that you have similar looking groups of organisms, or you have a group of organisms in one place that looks very similar to another group of organisms in another in terms of whether it was their wing shape, their morphology, in terms of things that you can measure. But the dilemma was, should you group these things together when one was 10,000 miles away from the other and there was no way that one got from one place to the other? In other words, they were not closely historically connected. So it's called polytopicity. It's one of the problems with the subspecies concept for zoologists, and the subspecies concept in zoology is the same as the race idea for human beings. Only with human beings, there's even more problems than there were for the zoologists. Problem of classification. So my human example of polytopicity is certain people from Vanuatu and Papua New Guinea and those places who, for everybody who just sees them on the street, based on your own social experience, you say, oh, these look like Africans, or these are Africans. Well, no, they're not. No, they're not. Their lineage DNA says they're not. Where they live says they're not. And their languages definitely put them very far afield. But they live in tropical climates. Modern humans were tropical to begin with. Are these retentions from early migrations, or are they just reacquisitions of tropical traits? Now, no one can answer that, but their DNA clearly ties them to Asia, the lineage DNA. And there's some other interesting things about DNA too. Other markers, and I have to finish now. Other markers clearly, in terms of lines of descent, tie together not just simply all of humanity. You can forget that there's some other more specific markers that tie people from China all the way to Africa together. And it's like amazing. That's the Yap marker. There used to be a debate, did the Yap marker arise in Africa, arise in Asia? If you say the Yap marker arose in Asia, then you're saying most of all Africans today came from Asia. Now, I know certain people don't want to hear that, those who are ideologically oriented in particular ways. No, but the proof so to speak, is that number one, that wasn't very logical based on the dates of the emergence of the yap marker, but also within Nigeria today, they found some people who have the yap marker, that's a long story, but anyway, it sort of submits that Africa is the place of origin for this particular marker. Okay?
At the time when the Homo sapiens first emerged from Africa, they were Negroes at that time.
What do you mean? No, I don't use that. No, I don't use that term Negro.
Yeah, I don't mean Sat. I'm just trying to make a strong point. Were they black, of a black race?
Well, in terms of their skin color, they would have been dark based on ecological principles. Based on principles, that's our guess. Do we have any empirical proof?
You could be dark and Asian, or you could be dark and black. That's what I'm saying. Sorry to use the word Negro, but at the time, would they have been Negroes coming out of Africa as Homo?
I don't know what you mean by Negro, and I wouldn't use that word. I wouldn't use that word. No.
A black man.
Yeah. Well, if they I will say that they were dark, and I don't know how dark, and they had limb ratios that are tropical that you find in the tropics today. Okay, those are all things that, based on biological principles, would tie them to where they are. And most people and most scientists would say yes, they would have been dark. How dark, I can't tell you. They wouldn't have been blonde, no, if that's what you're asking. If that's the hidden question underneath, no, they wouldn't have been blonde.
In other words, they would have been African, from Africa, they would have been...
At that moment in time, you're talking about a species history.
Sorry.
Okay?
Okay,
It's
we
a
need
different
to just
issue.
wind down now. There's no more questions. You're welcome to talk to Shamaka with the coffee and teas. What I'd like to do is thank you for an excellent workshop. Really enjoyed that. I'm sure other people have, even if they might have been quiet. They were absorbing it all, I'm sure.
Okay,
So thank you,
you.
Shamaka.
Thank you. It was nice to be here.
Blessed love, I am the Honorable Priest Isaac. I am an official priest within the realms of Rastafari of the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress. I also hold a certification in the craft of Archaeoastronomy from Politecnico di Milano in Italy. Our universe and its makeup has always been an intriguing subject for humankind. Astronomy is the study of everything in the universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Ancient astronomy is similar, but pays special attention to the physical and spiritual values of stars, planets, moons, and other celestial objects. It also brings in the terrestrial component, being things on an earthly plane, such as plants, human organs, and connects them to the heavenly bodies. In this course, you will learn the makeup of various planets and stars, how to locate them in the night sky, along with their associated constellations. You will also be taught about the earliest civilizations known for their astronomical comprehension, namely Kush, also known as ancient Ethiopia, Kemet, called Egypt today, the Dogons, and the Bozos, as well as the civilization of Sumer. You will also learn about black holes, their nature and origin, as well as how the ancients viewed them. Ancient astronomy is the mother of archaeoastronomy and astrotheology. Both subject areas are covered by the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Sign up today. Visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com for more information.
living drummer. Everyone is a living drummer. Man of peace is a living drummer. As a man of war is a living drummer. Still I see ever living come. Give me now. Is a living drummer. Conversation is a living drummer. Cardiac beating in the rhythm low down. Whereas as a living drummer, careful the rhythm where your heart beat down. Give me now. As a living drummer, give me now. As a living drummer, don't bring these streams into bitter water, but make you see all them will know say sir. Protect the terrain and protect the tundra. As a sacred diamond was given into law. A garden to dress it up and keep it far. Prosperity inheritance a ball up a jar. Turn up for your people in the presence of Jah. And forgive them in a nothing where go present danger. Give me now, I a living drum. Rastafari. As a living drum, give me my and I a living drum. In everyone, he's a living drum. In everyone. World out of temperature, world in a season differential. Cultures of views and go mix up in a. And the youth band them a slaughter like I show them for what. Jaja know say them not the nation of teeth but yeah. Jaja come second the heart of Anna. Yeah. Political judgment of taking the people in a hunger. Verily people feeding ya affliction for. From them clamp them sanction a judgment seminar. And a dry spell a rotting across over. I live in drama. I a living drama. Oh, living drama. Rasta, I a living drama. Rhythm what I can't tap on a season gallop. Civil warfare stop all over earth a bust up. Living all Rasta culture now invite us up. And the manners keep the fractions and them well men up. I just a man a link up, tell them come up here. As a living drum, everyone is a living drum. Rasta man is a living drum. As a man of peace, is a living drum. Man of war is a living drum. Till I see I ever living come, is a living drum. Conversation, if you give me now, cardiac beating in the rhythm low down there. As a living drum, whereas now, as a living drum, careful the rhythm where your heart a beat down. Oh, as a living drum, hear me, as a living drum. Oh yeah. It was an economic struggle which broke the camel back. Certain way of keeping all the street to hustle and lock. And I tell the youth they should not involve in that. When the right stage of things and no matter what, yell so that make a peace and yell them gun down so that. In a plant, in a high reap I crop, in a brain terminal, meditation set up yo. As a living drum, as a living drum, oh, as a living drum, I is a living drum. Hey, when the large earths are moving over Oriental, Senegal, Tambakunda, see La Rasta man have a correlative in a highly Ethiopia. No matter what they ever separate us for, another is the reason how I gather up the music for. Yeah, as a living drum, as a living drum, oh, a living drum, Rastafari, as a living drum.
You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
Mbote. I am Nabi Kefa, Apostle, Mbuta, Watchman, and I am Moon 2. We are Moon 2, the head of the peoples, the head of nations. Our ancestors did not practice religion. They had a covenant relationship with the Most High. And they were considered the ambassadors, or in Kikongo, the Mbasi, from which derived the word ambassador. They were the representatives of the Most High on earth. Congo was also known as the Embo. Yes, and the Embo means the birthplace or the cradle of the Benanzambi. Yes, from the word Embo, we get the word embryo. And in the embryo, we know that life grows in the belly of a woman. So Embo is the birthplace of Muntu. Yes, the birthplace of the humanity that the Most High created. According to tradition, our ancestors came from Northeast Africa. They came down from Kemet. They followed the river Nile. They crossed it and arrived in the Congo Basin. And there in the Congo Basin, they started building a kingdom. And the greatest kingdom is known as the Kingdom of Congo, which had its capital in Banza, Congo. And coming down from Egypt, they were known as Muntu, N-T-U, Muntu, which signifies community or people. And from the word Muntu, we also have the word Bantu, and the Ba, it's a prefix to denote the people, plural for a multiple of people. So Bantu signifies the people. Yes, the people coming down from Kemet, following the Nile River. They crossed the Nile River and they landed in the basin Congo, which is the center of Africa. Yes, the Embu of the Congo, the birthplace, the cradle of the Muntu. Now, we have the word Ntu, which signifies people or community. And we have the word Bantu, which signifies the people, designating a specific group, the people. And we also have the word Muntu. And Muntu, you can divide Muntu in two parts. You have the Ntu, which designates people, and the Mu. Yeah, the Mu also comes from the word Mutu. Mutu signifying the head. So the Muntu is the head of the people. He is the head of the nations. So the book of Deuteronomy 7 verse 6 tells us that the Muntu, the people that he has chosen, are a holy people, a chosen people, and above all people. A holy people, a chosen people, and above all people. So this shows us that the covenant that the Most High made with our ancestors designated them as the Muntu, the community, the Bantu, the people, and the Muntu, the head of people, or the head of nations, meaning that they are above the people, exactly as the book of Deuteronomy tells us. We are Muntu, meaning that we are the chosen, the elect, that the Most High has elevated above all people. We are Muntu, the head of the peoples, the head of nations. The Bantus are the greatest ethnic group in sub-Saharan Africa. Scholars believe that there is a common origin for the Ashanti and Bantu people. They both came from from the northeast part of the African continent. The Ashanti eventually migrated to the west coast, roughly parallel to the southern edge of the Sahara Desert. The Bantu, by contrast, moved mainly to the south, so that today they occupy nearly the entire southern half of the continent, from the Congo Republic and Zaire on the west to Mozambique on the east, and southwards to the very southernmost tip called the Cape of Good Hope, which is in South Africa. So the Bantus, they occupy the entire Central Africa and the south of Africa. The Ashanti people, the Ashanti, Ashantu, Ashanti. Yes, you hear that Asha and Ntu or Ashanti. So you have that Nti in Ashan, which can also be the Ntu. The Nti and the Ntu are the same. It signifies people. So when you say Ashanti or Ashantu, it means the people of Ashan. Yes, the people. So the Ashanti people and the Bantu people have a common origin. Both have the tradition that the ancestors migrated from the northern part of Africa, to be excised from northeast of the African continent. Yeah, the northern eastern part from the African continent. The ancestors of the Ashanti and of the Bantu came down. Hallelujah. So they have this same common tradition of migration from the northeastern part of Africa. Smith's Bible Dictionary of 1863 records that the descendants of Ham settled in Africa and also sent many branches into Asia, Canaanites. If Africa is the ancient home of the black race, and the black race is cursed of God, why is the African continent of all continents on the earth the richest in natural resources to this very day, if the black races are cursed of God? And why is that portion of Asia, formerly called the land of the Canaanites and Palestine today, once totally inhabited by black people and known today as the Middle East, metaphorically spoken of in scripture as the land flowing with milk and honey, so poor and has no natural resources? There's no riches in the ground. Think about that. The word Hebrew corresponds with Black Semitic Bantu, with the Black Semitic people known as today as the Bantu, Bantu. The Ba is a prefix. Yes, the Ba is a prefix. Now, this word Hebrew comes from the Kikuyu word Kabiru. Kabiru, and also the Ka there, as in the Kikongo, Ba, the Ka is also a plural prefix. Then you have the word Ibiru. Ibiru means black, yes, in the Kikuyu language. And you also have in the Kenyan dialect the word Muiru, which corresponds with Ibiru, meaning black. So when you go, and actually the word Muiru also corresponds with the word Moor, which also means black. So when we read in the book of Genesis 14, verse 13, where Abana is called the Hebrew, we can understand that Abana was called the black man, Ifri or Ibri, the I being a prefix for singular person. So you have Ibri Habiru, Kabiru, all meaning black people or black men. So from hence we see that Abraham, according to the Bantu language, was a black man, and that Hebrew corresponds with Black Semitic Bantu, African. Alfred Louis Gruber, professor of anthropology at the University of California, notes that some scholars find similarities between the Sumerians of early Babylonia and modern African languages. This observation, while not universally held, lends some additional credence to the more specific findings that the dialect of Abraham's family was of African origin. Still another fact ties Nimrod to Abraham. It is that the city-state of Ur, the birthplace of Abraham, was located in southern plain of Babylon, of ancient Babylon. It seems plausible that one of the motives for Abraham to leave his home in Ur was the royal court intrigues to which he was subjected. These, of course, could have resulted from the revolutionary spiritual ideas which he held and propagated. That Abraham himself came from rich and influential circumstances can be glanced from Genesis 13 verse 2, which says Abraham was very rich in cattle, in gold, and in silver when he went to Egypt to get permission from the Pharaoh to settle in the land of Canaan. Abraham was born in Ur of the Chaldean, which is connected with the Sumerians. This area and these people were of Hamitic origin and Hamitic people. He later moved to the land of Canaan, which again, Canaan is Hamitic. And later he traveled to Egypt. And Egypt, Canaan, Sumer, or Ur of the Chaldean, these are all Hamitic territory. So there is considerable evidence that Abraham came from the ruling classes of a Cushite or black dynasty founded by King Nimrod, and that the region under their rule was inhabited by black people. The city of Ur is always called in Genesis Ur of the Chaldees, as if the phrase preserved an important memory. The Chaldees were the politically dominant ethnic group in Babylonia. In the early 2nd millennium BC, the inhabitants of Ur would have been either Akkadians or Amorites. The Akkadians were the earlier population of Babylonia, along with the now ethnically extinct Sumerians. In Ezekiel 16 verse 3 we read the following: "And say, Thus said the Lord God unto Jerusalem, Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother an Hittite." So Abraham is called an Amorite, and the Amorite and the Hittites were Hamites. They were Hamites, African people. So Embo signifies the umbilical cord. It also signifies the cradle. Yes, Africa is the cradle of human civilization and human advancement. Everything came from Africa. Astrology, all the scientists, and everything that we know that has built the world came from Africa. The Greeks had the education in Kemet. And after they were educated, they went back to their homes. And when the Roman came, they copied all what the Greek had learned in Kemet. So the Greek had the education in Kemet, and the Greek, they educated the Romans by the education that they received themselves in Africa. So the African people were the educators of the world. Everything came from Africa. The scientific knowledge, the political knowledge, the spiritual knowledge, all of it came from Africa. Therefore, Africa is the foundation of human civilization. When you talk about the Ur of the Chaldean, you talk about the Sumerians, you talk about Egypt, you talk about Congo, you talk about the first kingdom of the world, the Babylon kingdom of Nimrod, who was the son of Cush, Cush the son of Ham, and Ham is Black Africa. And we know that Abraham came out of that kingdom of Nimrod. He came out of that kingdom of Babylon as a black man, Habiru, Kabiru.
This is Radio Anu International. Cutting and clearing, renting and tearing.
Lock the doors, because what I'm about to say is going to upset some people right next here. Okay. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Exactly. I mean, never mind the question of like how you can discover a place where the inhabitants are watching you arrive from the shore. They weren't wearing pants. Is that what somebody said? I like that. So anyway, there were actually many other mariners before Columbus that discovered America as well. Decades earlier, even eons earlier, there were so many people that were coming across these islands and this continent. But it's only been in the last century that evidence has surfaced and continually grown to indicate that many of these pre-Columbian explorers might have come from Africa. So the first scientist to promote this possibility was Leo Wiener. Born in Russia, Wiener immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century on his way to British Honduras, where he planned to open a vegetarian commune. Well, when that turned out not to be the dream job he expected, he moved back to the United States and he became a professor at Harvard University, as one does. But in his time in Mesoamerica, he started noticing things. There are lots of things that led him to encounter certain discoveries that made him consider that possibly if the origins of American civilization might actually be in Africa. So he observed so many linguistic and botanical and other similarities that between 1920 and 1922, he published an extensive 3-volume piece called Africa and the Discovery of America. Now, unfortunately, this is the 1920s, so as yet, no serious archaeological evidence had been done to, or work had been done to support his botanical theories, because everyone was over raiding tombs in Egypt and things like that. Nod to Howard Carter. So he didn't have a whole lot of other stuff than the names to support him. However, he knew that other clues must exist. For example, he pointed out that Columbus himself was aware that African mariners had preceded him. In his diary of his second voyage, Columbus tells of how the natives of Hispaniola actually had given him gold-tipped metal spearheads that they said were brought by black-skinned people who had come in large boats from the south and southeast. Coincidence? I think not. No. So what's interesting about that, so upon returning to Spain, is that he actually took the spearheads and he sent them away and they had them assayed, and it turned out to be that these spearheads were covered in this metal this alloy that the inhabitants called guanin, and the metallurgists actually found out that this was an alloy of 32 parts. It was like 18 of gold, 6 of silver, 8 of copper, which matched the metal used in spearheads made in Western Africa for thousands of years, as carried by medieval African warriors, including the Mali and the Moors. The West Africans even called this metal guanine, the same name used by the natives of Hispaniola. But nothing more was said about that. Conspiracy. Well, probably because, in the interest of Spain, it was in their best interest that they didn't want to have any challenges to the discovery and the claims to the islands of the West Indies. Well, as the poem goes, or it should anyway, in 1493, Columbus stole all he could see. Yeah, so on his second voyage, which was 10 times larger than the first, Columbus went on a frantic but unsuccessful island hopping trip to find gold and spices. He carried along several natives from his newly discovered San Salvador, which the inhabitants called Guanahanvi. Another island that the natives pointed out was really large and was called Soameto. Soameto. Now, Columbus continued going around whimsically renaming every island he could find, but Leo Wiener, being the curious person and the linguist that he was, and the etymologist, he couldn't help noticing that the origin of these many place names and botanical names in Mesoamerica actually sounded distinctly like other languages in Africa, particularly Bantu and even Arabic. Wiener and numerous other botanists have also puzzled over the presence of certain plants that predated Columbus but originated in Africa. For example, the calabash bottle gourds. Now, this is a species originally from West Africa where they were well cultivated in America before Europeans arrived, even long before they existed in Indonesia or Polynesia. So, in fact, the Pacific was the last place that bottle gourds actually reached and expanded to. Pardon my covfefe. Well, if it were not for transatlantic trade pre-Columbian times, it would be very difficult to explain how certain plants, such as the yam, the sweet potato, domesticated cotton, peanuts, and tobacco, reached both West Africa and the Americas. The spread of the plantain is particularly noteworthy because it could not remain viable if it was carried in salt water. Well, in the 1640s, a Brazilian botanist named George Margrave. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Speaking of botany, Ricola. Yeah, there we go. So thank you very much. So the Brazilian botanist George Margrave wrote that the establishment of a particular varieties of plantains in this region stands as a strong argument for ancient maritime contact between the Americas and Africa. That's bananas. B-A-B-A-N-A-S. That's right, thank you. All right. Excuse me. All right, yeah. Okay, so how do these plants and languages, that's gonna be good for the video. All right, fix and pose. All right, use the cough drop. Okay, so how do these plants and languages and other cultural elements get to the Americas? Well, some believe, so what's that? Well, you're cheating. Well, some people believe that, over thousands of years, Africans migrated out of Africa and then over the Bering Strait, then down into South America, and things like that. Well, another explanation exists, and so get ready. There you go, let it out of your system. Awesome. Africans had ships. In fact, they had unbelievable. They had a shipload of vessels, and they had away. The anchors weigh. So, in fact, they had 4 kinds of vessels. And Nubian pottery, this is an example of Nubian pottery with a painting on it that shows a long-hold pottery. Art! That shows either a long-hold boat or a papyrus raft or a hulled-out canoe. And then this other painting beside it is from, the first one was from 3000 BC, and this is a bird's-eye view of an oared riverboat in Chad. and it dates from 3500 BCE. Now, the Africans of Guinea also had dugout canoes hewn from these monumental trees on the coast there. In 1500, it's just a few years after Columbus's voyage, the Portuguese captain Pacheco Pereira wrote, "In this country can be found the largest canoes made of a single trunk. Some are so large that they hold 80 men." Now, the West Africans were known to lash two dugout canoes together, side by side, and no one questions the seaworthiness of a similar type of Polynesian catamarans. Well, here's a 15th century Portuguese painting of sailing canoes on the Congo estuary. The Portuguese, like Captain Pereira, had heard that African traders were visiting Brazil in the mid-1400s. So to demonstrate that mariners from West Africa could have sailed to the Americas using papyrus vessels as early as 2000 BCE, Norwegian adventurer Thor Heyerdahl actually used ancient shipbuilding techniques in order to construct and sail the Ra 1 and the Ra 2 in 1969 and 70. And generally, some type of sailing vessel will average about 100 miles per day, even without sails. And in an ocean current, something like a raft or a reed boat can average about 60 miles a day. Now, Islamic historian Amir Hajib reported that voyages west from Mali were happening in the year 1311, just 150 years before Columbus. Now, when he asked the Mali emperor, shown here, incidentally, holding a globe of the world made of solid gold, asked him, well, tell me about this rumor about Atlantic travel. And he said that his predecessor had commissioned an expedition with 200 ships filled with men and a similar number with gold and water and enough provisions for 2 years. And he said, go out and find something. And if you don't come back, so you find something or you run out of food. And unfortunately, only one ship returned, and the captains told the emperor that we sailed for a very long time until we met what seemed like a river with a strong current flowing in the open sea. I was the last ship, and I turned where I was and did not enter the current. The others disappeared. I do not know what became of them. So, well, this story seems to describe the trade wind-driven equatorial current, or the Canary Current. Now, I apologize if anyone has any cats on their lap at the moment, but so we basically have two rivers, two circular rivers in the ocean here, and you can see it's very easy for Africans from the south and the Angola regions to come up towards the equator and going westwards, or from the western coast of Africa north of the equator to go eastwards along that same current. But you know, this Mercator projection doesn't really, in terms of cartography, Boo Mercator, it really doesn't do it justice. So let me just, I did this little animation for you to show that they could have taken the Canary Current up and around, and then they go over they fall off the edge of the earth, and then they come back and they make landfall back again in Cape Verde. So it is definitely possible. So they definitely had to do that. Now, at least a dozen explorers, including Constantine Ravenous, reported seeing blacks upon reaching the New World. In fact, in 1513, Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa, who you might know because people named a very popular dance after him. Anyway, so when Balboa was there, he said he met members of a tribe of Ethiopians in Panama. And according to Balboa's log, these men came from a totally black village that was 2 days' journey away. And he figured that these blacks had come from Ethiopia at a much earlier date. So there are also examples of physical evidence, including pre-Columbian African skeletons, which have been found throughout the Americas. Now, dating between 800 BCE and 300 CE, these murals are from the Temple of the Warriors at Chichen Itza. Now, they clearly feature, the color version is easier to see, but they clearly feature three races. And it's depicting black and Indian allies and a battle against white invaders. Now, because of their long blonde hair jewelry, a skin-hulled boat that we have here, right there, and also the fact that they're fighting naked, which was common for warriors from Ireland, they believe that these are Celtic warriors And because this mural shows that blacks are clearly fighting on the side of the Mayans, that they must have been integrated into society much longer before this painting was done in order to form that form of alliance. Now, there are numerous pre-Columbian figurines with striking similarities to ancient African artwork, and they've been found in Central and South America. In southeastern Mexico, there are 18 rock statues of heads up to 11 feet tall that are facing the ocean looking east. Now, archaeologists call them the Olmec colossal heads after the people that carved them. And they were produced for 50 to 200 years and date from at least 900 BCE when they were mysteriously buried for some reason. So now think about it. It took enormous effort to quarry these. The smallest one was 6 tons, so 6 to 50-ton blocks, to quarry them and carry them 75 miles away from the quarry, and then carve them and then erect them. These people that they modeled them after must have been important. Whoever they were, they must have been important to be remembered or obeyed or worshipped. Well, Jose Meglier Serrano, the archaeologist who first uncovered them, he pointed out that facial features look amazingly like African blacks, and they all display distinctive headgear or protective helmets. Now, however, some people think that these are actually the facial figures of overweight babies. Yeah, I think they needed to wear helmets when they were babies, if they think that. So, and then still others find it easier to believe that instead of Africans, those depicted or responsible for these sculptures, and as well as the Mesoamerican pyramids, were not African Americans, but dun dun dun. So why is it that so many people have never heard of this alternative of American discovery by the continent's nearest neighbors to the east? So, I mean, look, now the thing, exactly, whoa, where'd all the continents go? So, this is, look at how close this is. I mean, why people don't think that you could go, this is closer compared to more than twice the distance that Columbus sailed. This will win a drink for you in a bar game sometime. Which state is closest to Africa? Maine. Yeah, look, see there, you gotta need a globe for this. Look at that, versus, yeah, geometry. Science. There you go. So anyway, so very few Americans know this. And why is this? So having examined textbooks throughout for years up until 2018, James W. Lowen says that although some books cite the alternative possibility that Vikings, Norse, or even Irish may have reached America first, not one textbook, old or new, mentions the West Africans. So whether or not you give any credence to this admittedly controversial Afrocentric theory, it's obvious that Columbus was not the first to discover America, but the last. So why did he make such an indelible mark on Western people's minds? Well, conquest may have a lot to do with it. Right, Eurocentrism. Unlike the mundanity of perhaps thousands of years of peaceful African transatlantic trade, the quest for gold and world domination makes a much better story. And, the good Queen Isabella was so proud of her fella that she immediately equipped Columbus with 17 ships, 1,500 men, 200 cannons, crossbows, cavalry, and even 20 attack dogs for a second voyage. And another, and another. The story of Columbus remains the most widely accepted version of American discovery, most likely because it was the most recent, the most well-armed, the most documented, and the most similar in appearance to the authors of American textbooks. And one other thing that should be pointed out here is that in the years after Columbus discovered America, in 400 years, 20 million Africans were stripped from the coast of Africa, half of them dying in transit for slavery, who knows how many fleeing inland, And at the same time, within 5 years of Columbus's arrival in the New World, 90% of the indigenous population had died from disease or murder, 90%. So the fact is that leaves few people to have a written or memory or an oral history of the seafaring of their African discoverers. Historian Samuel D. Marble wrote, as a subject for research, the possibility of African discovery of America has never been a tempting one for American historians. We choose our own history, or more accurately, we select those vistas of history that more or less kind of explain to have the promise of the greatest satisfaction for ourselves. And we have had little appetite to explore the possibility that our founding father was a black man. So nevertheless, there is considerable evidence to suggest that African mariners also participated in this great adventure, no less than Vikings, the Portuguese, Spaniards, Celts, Chinese, Polynesians, and Arabs, and others. So now I would like to raise a toast to all the discoverers of America before Columbus, wherever you may came from. May more of us discover you. Thank you. Woo, heads up.
Are you searching for unique handmade Black cultural crafts, t-shirts, and accessories? Look no further. Introducing your ultimate destination for the vibrant and captivating creations that celebrate Rastafari and African culture. At Black Dominion, we bring you a curated collection of exquisitely designed, crafted products honoring the rich heritage of Rastafari, Ethiopia, and the Black diaspora. With our user-friendly website, shopping is a breeze. We ship worldwide, bringing Black culture to every corner of the globe. Visit www.blackdominion.shop today and start exploring the incredible range of handmade Rastafari and Black culture. Find your inspiration, embrace your roots, and stand out from the crowd.
Blessed love, I am the Honorable Priest Isaac. I am an official priest within the realms of Rastafari of the Ethiopia Africa Black International Congress. I also hold a certification in the craft of Archaeoastronomy from Politecnico di Milano in Italy. Our universe and its makeup has always been an intriguing subject for humankind. Astronomy is the study of everything in the universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Ancient astronomy is similar, but pays special attention to the physical and spiritual values of stars, planets, moons, and other celestial objects. It also brings in the terrestrial component, being things on an earthly plane, such as plants, human organs, and connects them to the heavenly bodies. In this course, you will learn the makeup of various planets and stars, how to locate them in the night sky, along with their associated constellations. You will also be taught about the earliest civilizations known for their astronomical comprehension, namely Kush, also known as ancient Ethiopia, Kemet, called Egypt today, the Dogons, and the Bozos, as well as the civilization of Sumer. You will also learn about black holes, their nature and origin, as well as how the ancients viewed them. Ancient astronomy is the mother of archaeoastronomy and astrotheology. Both subject areas are covered by the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Sign up today. Visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com for more information. You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
Wow, wow, wow. Dr. Blair, how are you doing this evening?
Doing very well now that I'm on your show again, Sister Tara. Seek freedom and seek wisdom. I say freedom because it's always seeking that, even though the wisdom is something we're supposed to have once we search for it. So I thank you again for having me on this particular show. I've never been on this one with you before. And that introduction was very interesting as I listened to me talk and you talk about me. So let's go from there.
All right, all right. Wow. It's so much I want to touch on tonight. I don't even know where to start. I have so many. I don't even know where to start.
So many of us who seem to be oblivious to what's really going on.
Well, I tell you, at first it hurt. At first it frustrated me, and I got frustrated. Then I got angry. Then I said, what am I getting angry about, and why am I frustrated? I was there at one time also. People who were around me held me back because they didn't know what I was trying to do. But in holding me back, it probably saved me from myself to let me try to seek and gain more wisdom too. It's frustrating, especially when I see in the youth the musculature, the energy, everything that could be used. You know, sometimes you used to make that saying, I don't know who said it, that too bad that youth is wasted on the young. I can begin to see that. But then as I've seen with these more crystal children coming in now. Maybe this is what I was here to do, to try to help crystal children. But the ones coming in here now, these new developed fetuses that are born with the eyes wide open, the neck erect, psychically communicating with animals, psychically communicating with the mother in the womb, and seeing again now the understanding. Now we have more for water and the amniotic fluid that now can be expressed. And that's another thing too I want to bring out to some of these women, some of these ladies, some of these girls that are going to go into women. The amniotic fluid that you carry the fetus in can be controlled by your mind. And you can bring forth a better developed fetus by just understanding that and taking the things to make that amniotic fluid a little bit more stronger, able to carry more energy, able to carry more organ energy. So that's one thing too. But I guess I'd say this, I wish that many of the young ones would listen to more of what I say, not trying to be egotistical, because I've been through it. And I wouldn't lie to them. And if I did, I'd just simply tell it. And they could avoid a lot of things, a lot of experimental things and everything else. And in fact, you know, with even these shots and things that they take by listening sometimes to it. So I'm still here fighting, which means that through the frustration, I haven't given up. And as long as I haven't given up and I'm here, I'm going to try to make my life worthy of it and worthy of the young, the old, the middle, everything else, to make this planet a better place, because that's now what I'm seeking, to be wonderful to a planet which has gone through so much hell.
Wow. It's so much I want to touch on tonight. I don't even know where to start.
No doubt. No doubt. What I find interesting is how the average person, and I'm not knocking anybody's religion, but the average person who may be of a particular religion can believe in an unseen, almighty, whatever deity that they've been told about in these books. But then when you suggest that there's life, and intelligent life, on other planets and other areas outside of the planet Earth with the expanse of the cosmos, they look at you like you have just, you know, jumped off the back of a turnip truck or something. You know, they're ready to have you committed, as if you had just start raving mad.
Also, you mentioned so much about Angola that automatically took me back to Simeon Toko, and they kind of set up over here. The god back. Jesus came back, if you want to believe that Jesus was here before. He came back in the form of Simeon Toko. And most people don't know about it. All over Europe, they talked about the events and things that happened with Simeon Toko. Most black people over here don't even know if Simeon Toko existed. And he's the one that came back and was, he was the one that helped to raise the Togolushki, which defeated the British Army. He's the one that began to supposedly, they captured him. They cut out his heart. Supposedly he comes into the room and said, "Why did you cut out my heart?" They had some British, Albanian or some mercenaries there that were from someplace, I forget. But anyway, they supposedly got him and cut him into pieces, put him in a bag or something like this, came back to collect their tithes from all that they had done, and the man walks out of the bush and starts talking to them. There are too many, and the one that I think got world headlines is when they said they finally were going to kill him. They put him on a plane, took him over the Atlantic Ocean, and they're going to push him out. Said, "No, you would not push me out," and the plane began to fall down like a helicopter. And these people started screaming and going crazy, and he said, "If I die, you die." And so again, they finally took him. The plane stopped in midair. There you go. And this story was all over Europe.
And
I didn't hear.
know it's hard for people to believe on his phone. Please, Dr. Blair, can you spell his name out for them so they can Google this man? I just got put up on him myself, and I was blown away. Okay.
Oh yes,
he did all the miracles. He done it. He documented
to make a movie on. In fact, the blacks ought to make spirits. Well, and again, I-M-E-O Simeon Toki, T-O-K-I-E or T-O-K-E. I'm not really sure about that last name. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And this is the one, as I say, they had all Europeans were going crazy about that. And what this man was able to do in this army that he raised of the little ones in Tokaliski, and they saw them in there and they went crazy because these things were coming up out of the earth. They seemed to be third or fourth dimensional. Oh yeah, now that's what they should make a movie on.
Absolutely. This is the real deal.
Yeah, and I
Dr.
noticed
Blair,
that.
while we still got you, I want to put something out there, and I want to have you expound on this, if you might. You in one of the lectures that I've seen that you did, and I know you've done many, but you talked about the correlation of the Great Pyramid, what it actually symbolizes, the King's Chamber. So many of us who seem to be oblivious to what's really going on. But then when you suggest that there's life, and intelligent life, on other planets and other areas outside of the planet Earth with the expanse of the cosmos, they look at you like you have just, jumped off the back of a turnip truck or something. They're ready to have you committed as if you had just start raving mad.
You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke. When I'm going, no one gets on, cause I won't let nobody press up and mess up the scene I set. I like to stand in the crowd and watch the people run.
Here in the WBAI studios are Bayard Rustin, Executive Secretary of the War Resisters League, and Malcolm X, Minister of Mohammed's Temple of Islam in New York. Both of you gentlemen are working in your own ways for the welfare of the American Negro. And the first thing I'd like to ask you is if you would describe the purposes of your individual organizations and tell us something about the philosophies inherent in them. Mr. X.
Yes, sir, Mr. Donald. And I'm happy to be here today to represent the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to your audience. And as you know, Mr. Muhammad is the spiritual head of the fastest growing group of Muslims in the Western Hemisphere. And he perhaps is probably the greatest drawing card among the so-called Negro masses, more so than any other so-called Negro leader today. In proof of which, a year ago in Washington, D.C., he appeared at the Uline Arena and drew 10,000. And in New York at the St. Nicholas Arena last year, he drew 10,000. And This year, I think he drew another between 10 and 15,000. In Chicago, he drew 15,000. And I cite these things just to show you that as a man, no matter what people, whether they agree with him or disagree with him, they have to admit that the masses of the so-called Negroes are interested in hearing what he has to say. Probably in the past 2 years, he has become America's most talked about and most written about black man. And even at the present time, I'd say he's one of the most he's the most controversial topic, namely because he's having such miraculous success in getting his program over among the so-called Negro masses. And if you ask me what it is, I can best tell you what it is by what he is credited with doing. The Time magazine last year, in an article about Mr. Muhammad, pointed out that he has successfully eliminated from among his followers the use of alcohol, which is one of the things that has destroyed our people here in America as a race. He has successfully eliminated dope addiction, profanity, excessive profanity, which actually stems from disrespect of self. He has successfully eliminated stealing and crime among his followers. He has, Time magazine also pointed out that he has been successful in eliminating adultery and fornication and prostitution and making the black man respect his woman, something that has been characteristically absent among our men. And Time magazine also pointed out that among the Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, juvenile delinquency has been eliminated. And in the U.S. News and World Report, about a couple months later in '59, they pointed out that Mr. Muhammad was successful in making the so-called Negro see the importance.
This is Radio Anu International. Cutting and clearing, renting and tearing. You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
Blessed love, welcome to the Youth University program. I'm Honorable Princess Acacia Menon.
I'm Honorable Prince Almasi. We welcome you to join us for the next half an hour for a bag of information and a box of inspiration.
That's right, Prince. This is a program designed for all ages conducted by the youth.
Bring to you history, science, African languages, and much more.
So if you appreciate of our program, please let us know via the Institute's email, website, Instagram, or Facebook page.
Also, feel free to go to the page of our website and choose from our children's books and other products we have available for you.
Thanks again for choosing Youth University.
Full joy.
Bye.
that will live than to live for an idea that will die.
Steve Biko was laid to rest in the simplest of fashions, his coffin carried by donkey cart in September 1977. His funeral was attended by 20,000 people, including diplomats from 13 countries, his close friend Donald Woods, and members of opposition parties. More could have packed in had security police not set up a cordon around the town. Biko's short life of just 31 years was packed with political activism. There had been deaths in detention before, but the country and world were shocked that someone with a statue of Biko could have died in this fashion. He had been returning from a trip to Cape Town when he was arrested outside King Williamstown. His banning order had confined him to the town. The apartheid government viewed him as a threat, as he had been involved in NUSAS as a student, SASO, the Black People's Convention, and the organization most identified with him, the Black Consciousness Movement.
Black consciousness is an attitude of the mind and a way of life, the most positive call to emanate from the black world for a long time. Its essence is the realization by the black man of the need to rally together with his brothers around the cause of their oppression, the blackness of their skin, and to operate as a group to rid themselves of the shackles that bind them to perpetuate servitude.
His message of black pride resonated with both South Africa's oppressed and others worldwide. But state brutality grew alongside this message. Biko was taken to Walmer Police Station in Port Elizabeth and then to the notorious security police officers in the Sanlam building. The PE police were apparently determined not to show Biko the respect they believe he enjoyed from King Williamstown Police. Despite an inquest and later testimony by officers at the TRC, there's never been clarity on what happened on the night of September the 6th. Biko was examined by doctors. One said he was shamming, another recommended he receive medical treatment, but later allowed him to be transferred to Pretoria, naked and manacled in the back of a van. The official version of his death was that he had died of hunger. His death on this day leaving the then Minister of Police, Jimmy Kruger, to say it left him cold.
I'm going to be me as I am, and you can beat me or jail me or even kill me, but I'm not going to be what you want me to be.
And those words were the words of Stephen Bantu Biko, or Bantu Stephen Biko, who was born on the 18th of December 1946 in Takastad, Eastern Cape, South Africa. And he died in Pretoria. I'm going to tell you about his history, though. He was a South African philosopher and an anti-apartheid activist who founded the Black Consciousness Movement and also the South African Students Organization, otherwise known as SASO.
That's good.
And also Steve Biko, he got expelled from high school and later from medical school because of his political activism, and also faced constant harassment, arrest, and banning by authorities. Now, as you may know, in South Africa, before Nelson Mandela became president, political activism for black people was obviously a no-no, and segregation in South Africa is quite similar to segregation in the USA. And so Biko challenged the white supremacy and racial discrimination that oppressed majority of the black people in his country and inspired them to assert their dignity and identity as black people. But he died at the age of 13 in police custody after being brutally beaten and also tortured. And while some people And while some people say that he died of hunger, he also died of brain injuries that were sustained by South African security officers. And that is all about Stephen Bantu Biko. Blessed love. And also correction, Steve Biko died at the age of 30. 30. Blessed love.
Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni mwakaribishwa Kenya yetu, hakuna matata. Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni mwakaribishwa Kenya yetu, hakuna matata. Ngiti jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni mwakaribishwa Kenya yetu, hakuna matata.
Blessed love. Welcome to the Kiswahili Corner. Now, last Monday, we were counting by hundreds from 100 to 900. Today, we'll be adding a 0 to the 2 zeros. We'll be counting by thousands. And 1,000 in Swahili is elfu. And we also add the ones to the thousands. For instance, 1,000 is elfu moja. 2,000 is elfu mbili. 3,000 is elfu tatu. 4,000 is elfu nne. 5,000 is elfu tano. 6,000 is elfu sita. 7,000 is elfu saba. 8,000 is elfu nane. 9,000 is elfu tisa. And that's actually now for counting by numbers. But how do you add all the numbers together? Like 7,546. You say elfu saba mia tano arobaini na sita. Did you get that? It's elfu saba mia tano arobaini na sita. And we will be sharing this next Monday on our Kiswahili Corner. Kwaheri. Tuonane tena.
Hakuna matata. Kenya wote, hakuna matata. Hakuna matata. Kapela, hakuna matata. Kenya wote, hakuna matata. Hakuna matata. Mama, hakuna matata. Kapela, hakuna matata.
installment of Youth University, we will be talking about some animal facts. Now we have 2 facts and 2 animals here today. So our first fact is about squirrels. So squirrels' teeth never stop growing. But when they eat their hard food like nuts and, mostly nuts and acorns and stuff, this wears down their teeth. So then now their teeth don't grow super long, like not super long. And our next and final fact, koalas' fingerprints are very similar to human fingerprints. In fact, sometimes koala fingerprints get confused with human fingerprints in crime scenes in, mostly Australia. Isn't that just amazing how koalas could maybe throw off the police?
Yes. And animals like koalas were actually called marsupials, such as koalas and kangaroos.
Wow, that is just an add-on to the scientific facts. So, to review, squirrels' teeth never stop growing, but they get weared down by them eating their nuts. And koalas' fingerprints are very similar to human fingerprints. So that is it for All Things Science today, but don't go anywhere. Stay locked with Youth University.
Blessed love, we've reached the conclusion of Youth University.
And we would just like to say thank you for all of you all who took the time out of your busy or not busy schedule to listen to us spitting information and inspiration on the Mystic Vibration.
Yes, so today we talked about Bantu Stephen Biko, otherwise known as Steve Biko for short, who was a South African philosopher and anti-apartheid activist, and he got expelled, and how he got expelled from high school for his political activism, founded the Black Consciousness Movement, and also found SASO, the South African Students Organization, and how he challenged white supremacy and racial discrimination, and how he got arrested for it and died in prison at the age of 30. And we also, in the Kiswahili corner, we were counting by 1,000, from Elfu Moja all the way to Elfu Tisa, and that means 1,000 all the way to 9,000. Next Monday, we'll be teaching you how to add all the numbers together in Kiswahili.
And in our All Things Science installment of Youth University, we talked about 2 animals. And we will be talking about some more animals next class. Anyway, so, to review, squirrels' teeth never stop growing, but they get weighed down by the hard food that they eat. And koalas' fingerprints look like human fingerprints.
Yes, and that is all for Youth University. And as we always say, I am the best and I deserve the best, and only the best is coming to me now. King Selassie, Jah Rastafari.
This is Radio Anu International. Cutting and clearing, renting and tearing. You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
Blessed love, welcome to the Youth University program. I'm Honorable Princess Acacia Menon.
I'm Honorable Prince Almasi. We welcome you to join us for the next half an hour for a bag of information and a box of inspiration.
That's right, Prince. This is a program designed for all ages conducted by the youth.
Bring to you history, science, African languages, and much more.
So if you appreciate of our program, please let us know via the Institute's email, website, Instagram, or Facebook page.
Also, feel free to go to the page of our website and choose from our children's books and other products we have available for you.
Thanks again for choosing Youth University.
This is Radio Anu International. Cutting and clearing, renting and tearing. You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
Blessed love, welcome to the Youth University program. I'm Honorable Princess Acacia Menon. It's a program designed for all ages conducted by the youth.
Bring to you history, science, African languages, and much more.
So if you appreciate of our program, please let us know via the Institute's email, website, Instagram, or Facebook page.
Also, feel free to go to the page of our website and choose from our children's books and other products we have available for you.
Thanks again for choosing Youth University.
Bonjour.
You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke. When I'm gone, no one gets on, cause I won't let nobody press up and mess up the scene I set. I like to stand in the crowd and watch the people wonder, damn.
This is uniparentally inherited. This is a Y chromosome passed from father to son to son to son. This particular DNA marker here, PN2, is sort of the background, and that's what this means. It's the background of 73% of all of the peoples in Africa today. 73%. The PN2 is found in West Africa and sub-equatorial Africa. The P2 or M2 as it's called. This M35, 215 M35, is what you find in the Horn of Africa up to Egypt and over to Morocco. It corresponds to the 5 and the 11 in the previous slide. This is the father of both groups of Africans. This binds the continent together, okay? So although you have Berbers with blue eyes and blonde hair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they share, for the most part, this PN2 ancestry with people in West and tropical Africa. This is the modern population. And they share much less of the M89, which comes off the tree, in another way. I'm going to finish here. This is an old slide. I'll just stop here. Okay, well, that's where it stopped anyway, doesn't it? Okay, all right.
Any questions about Shamarka's presentation? Okay.
You mentioned about there being no Europeans 60,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me when they first went into Egypt? When the Mediterranean people first went into Egypt?
When I talk about 60,000 years ago, there being no modern people in Europe, what I'm saying is the best evidence that we have for modern people being anatomically, what we call anatomically modern people in any part of Europe is at the outside 40,000 years, okay? And when you talk about Mediterranean people, we need to talk about that later on because, as I have said and tried to say, Africans don't all look alike. So some of what you're calling Mediterranean people are just some more Africans, okay? Now, you have to get your arms around that. And that's what that last slide was about with the PN2 transition. Because most of the people there who have that PN2 transition, that particular gene, that genealogy, in its derived form is M35. For example, Berbers are M35, M81. Those people don't look like Congolese. But I'm trying to have you understand that they are carrying genealogically, in terms of their male ancestry at least, they're carrying something that ties them to the rest of the continent and does not tie them to Europe, even though physically, externally, you may say, well, gee, they look like Europeans. You understand what I'm saying? So when you ask me, when did X, we don't use those concepts of Mediterranean race, Alpine race, Nordic race, all that's from another era. You know, it's descriptive, and in actual fact, you will find, you can find individuals all over the world who might conform to one of those sort of categories. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's the same thing they say about being Arab. Arab is a culture, not a race. It means traveling person.
You're listening to Radio.
Siemi, Mbote. I am Nabi Kefa, Apostle.
All right, Annetta, lock the doors because what I'm about to say is going to upset some.
Are you searching for unique handmade Black cultural crafts, t-shirts, and accessories?
Blessed love, I am the Honorable Priest Isaac. I am an official priest within the realms of Rastafari of the Ethiopia-Africa Black International Congress. I also hold a certification in the craft of Archaeoastronomy from Politecnico di Milano in Italy. Our universe and its makeup has always been an intriguing subject for humankind. Astronomy is the study of everything in the universe beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Ancient astronomy is similar, but pays special attention to the physical and spiritual values of stars, planets, moons, and other celestial objects. It also brings in the terrestrial component, being things on an earthly plane, such as plants, human organs, and connects them to the heavenly bodies. In this course, you will learn the makeup of various planets and stars, how to locate them in the night sky, along with their associated constellations. You will also be taught about the earliest civilizations known for their astronomical comprehension, namely Kush, also known as ancient Ethiopia, Kemet, called Egypt today, the Dogons, and the Bozos, as well as the civilization of Sumer. You will also learn about black holes, their nature and origin, as well as how the ancients viewed them. Ancient astronomy is the mother of archaeoastronomy and astrotheology. Both subject areas are covered by the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Sign up today. Visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com for more information. You're listening to Radio Anu, the international flavor, the universal spice.
Wow, wow, wow. Dr. Blair, how are you doing this evening?
Doing very well now that I'm on your show again, Sister Tara. Seek freedom and seek wisdom. I say freedom because that's all we